As a child growing up with 3 siblings in the suburb of Columbia, Maryland, there was no doubt that Katie Faust was the star of her family.
Katie was probably the most active of the children. She was very healthy. She was very confident and outgoing and independent. She always had everyone around her entertained. You were never bored when Katie was around, that's for sure.
I had a lot of friends. I played sports. I never stopped talking.
Popular and at the top of her class, Katie graduated from high school in June of 2004 and then took a semester off to plan her college career.
I wanted to eventually own a restaurant, so I thought business management would be the perfect track for me.
She was going to start spring semester 2005.
I was excited because all of my friends had already gone away to school, so pretty much I wanted nothing more than to live on my own.
Katie needed to get a physical to go away to college, just a routine matter. And part of the exam was a test for TB to live in the dormitory.
They prick your arm and then circle the area where they pricked. And if any redness or swelling happens, then it's a positive test.
2 days later, it didn't look right, and I couldn't imagine how that would happen.
When I went to the doctor, she saw redness and swelling, and they sent me to go get my chest x-rayed. They didn't tell me anything initially, which made me worried. For a while, I thought I had tuberculosis because my test was positive. The doctor let me know that the x-rays were clear and that I didn't have tuberculosis. They gave me a clean bill of health to live in the dorms. They weren't really worried about why the test came up as a false positive. If they didn't think that it was a big deal, then I didn't either. I was excited to start school.
Confident that she's healthy, Katie and her family head down to Florida to spend the holidays with her grandmother.
We used to go down there for Christmas every year, and I was really excited to be with my family. We'd go and walk around the lake and just sit outside. I think I was down there for about 4 days before I noticed the bug bites. They were extremely itchy.
She just couldn't stand it, so I gave her some antihistamine to control the symptoms.
They got so itchy that I woke up one morning and I had scratched them open and they were bleeding.
I didn't know what to think about that. It seemed pretty extreme.
It strikes Katie as odd that her siblings don't seem to have any bites. But it isn't long before she begins to notice something even more peculiar about the sores themselves.
They started to expand outward and into a rash, and then they had started to grow blisters around the perimeter. I didn't know what was going on.
So I wanted her to make an appointment and go back and see the doctor.
I went to my pediatrician, and when she looked at it, because of the itching and the redness and the blisters, she thought that it might be a staph infection.
Staph infections are caused by Staphylococcus bacteria, a germ commonly found on the skin. But if staph bacteria enters the bloodstream, it can lead to sepsis, a potentially lethal condition in which the body is literally overwhelmed by the infection.
My doctor prescribed antibiotics, and then I moved to college a few days later. It was about a 2-hour drive from home.
It's always a nerve-wracking feeling to send your child off to school and you're not going to be there, but in this case, it was even more so.
I was looking forward to meeting new friends, getting the regular college freshman experience, living in the dorms and things like that. I was on this strong antibiotic that should have been taking care of things. And after the 10 days, I actually noticed that things had gotten worse. The blisters were increasing in number and in size.
I feel like one day we woke up and it was just everywhere.
I saw full, big blisters growing on myself.
It was pretty gross. They looked like oversized blisters that you would get like on your feet, but instead of being like white in color, they were like all red with like a thin membrane over top.
The areas that didn't have a blister had an itchy rash. I had around 15 to 20 blisters now. I would wake up in the middle of the night because the blister was broken. I would probably wake up around 3 to 4 times during the night because I would roll over onto a wet spot in my sheets. I kind of figured it wasn't a staph infection at all. I knew that I had to go back home and go to the doctor. I felt bad for making my parents drive all the way out to come and get me. I was really worried about what was going on.
She looked exhausted. She wasn't sleeping. I didn't even know what to think. It was pretty gross. I tried not to be frightened.
The doctor didn't know what to tell me. She thought that it might have been eczema presenting in a strange way. My best friend growing up had had eczema, and there was no blisters. So for my doctor to tell me that I had eczema just really confused me.
But Katie's doctor isn't overly concerned and sends the 18-year-old back to school with a topical ointment she believes will do the trick.
I used the ointment for about a week, even though I didn't think I had eczema, because I had no other option. I noticed that things were still getting worse. I think I probably had over 50 blisters. I felt like I was starting to lose control. I wasn't doing as well in school as I had hoped because my mind just, was focused on what was wrong with me.
Overwhelmed and frustrated, Katie does her best to live with the bizarre blisters, but they soon become impossible to ignore.
One day, I put on a pair of pants, and the pants were fine when I put them on, but when I moved, my pants would pull tighter. That's when blisters would break. I would end up with little wet spots on my pants from where the fluid was leaking out. I started just wearing loose-fitting clothes, like sweatpants and sweatshirts all the time, so that I wasn't walking around with these wet spots everywhere. It was making me self-conscious. I felt like I was missing out on the normal college experience. Other kids that I knew were going out and meeting new people, just things that I felt like I couldn't do.
We called her every couple of days just to see how she was doing. I think that she was trying not to tell us the full extent because she doesn't want to worry us.
I don't think I led them to believe that I was as nervous as I really was. I wanted to handle the problem independently. I wanted to feel like, I was 18 years old and I didn't need my parents for everything anymore. One day, I woke up and one of my blisters was just absolutely huge. The biggest one was probably 3 inches in diameter. And I had showed Stephanie because at this point, I was very freaked out about it.
It was like literally overnight, her body was covered with huge blisters and scabs from blisters that had already popped. They were yellow in color mostly, and then the scabs were just all red and pretty gruesome.
When I went to the hospital, one of the physicians came in to look at my skin, and they had never seen anything like that before, which made me a lot more nervous because these are ER doctors. You expect that they have seen everything, and here I was, and they didn't know what to do. They told me they were just going to treat my immediate symptoms, and they gave me a prescription pain reliever. At first, I was too scared to go to the hospital because they were going to diagnose me, and now I was even more scared because they couldn't diagnose me.
Frightened and embarrassed by the state her skin is in, Katie works out an elaborate routine to help keep the disfiguring blisters hidden from her dorm mates.
When I came out of the shower, typically I would try to go to my room fast before anyone kind of caught a glimpse of me. But one morning when I came out of the shower, the door was open at the end of the hallway. I kind of wasn't expecting it. I realized that someone had seen me. I went into my room quickly and just tried not to make eye contact. The RA for the floor had come to talk to me, and she let me know that someone had informed health services that I had some type of skin lesions and wanted to know what they were from and what it was all about.
She was upset and no one wanted to be around her, so it was hard. There was definitely gossip going on. Some people didn't want her in their rooms or sitting on their things because they were afraid that it would spread to them. Katie's arms and legs were just plastered with wounds from old blisters and new blisters all over.
I was worried that health services would try to remove me from the dorm. I was really scared. I knew something strange was going on.